So I'm going to start with the stump grinder. Now this particular stump grinder is very much like the one that is being handed around. The only difference is taking it to a grinder, and if you look at that one that's coming around, it's got a domed edge on it. This one, I've taken it to a grinder and I've cut the domed edge flat. That allows me to bring that flat edge straight up to my green mark and start to remove the green right up to where I want it to be. Okay, the next device I'm going to use is my micro carver. Micro is a pretty nice little tool. It's just a little hand quick release chuck. It's not like the Weecher where you've got to have a stop and a wrench. So and the micro grinder does have a forward and a reverse. And for this particular application, I do want to be running in the forward direction. I do have a little fan going over here. I'm not wearing them. I usually wear a respirator especially when I'm sanding. I may not do it when I'm doing carving, but I've only got one set of lungs and I want to keep them. So I'm not going to wear a mask tonight with the microphone interference, but I'm just going to lay this edge of this right into that green edge, and I'm starting the undercut of the first leaf under the prominent leaf. And leaves aren't flat, so there are going to be some areas that I'm going to be real aggressive and I'm going to cut really deep, especially when I'm near a hole. My own style is I like to dive into holes and I like the peaks to be tips up, okay? Just like when you're snow skiing, you're coming up to the top of the summit of the mountain. They got the sign under the ski lift that says tips up. That's what I want when I'm carving my leaves. I want my leaves to be tips up, and I want them to dive into the holes. So I'm going to work on this. Here is an inside lobe of a leaf. I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to dive down into that hole. Okay, that same leaf over here is the proud leaf over this one. So I want to keep that tip up. So I'm not going to do any carving on that top leaf. I'm going to make certain I bring, here it is coming back into a hole. I'm going to try to dive into that hole. Here's a hole. Dive into the holes. And I want you to look at how I have tried to start diving into holes and keeping the points proud. I'm going to switch to the saber bit. The saber bit is very aggressive. This is what you got to be careful of. You see, I pulled that stump grinder out and that collet went with it, okay? And I'm trying to put this small collet into this small bit into this big collet. It doesn't fit. Hang on to the collets, okay? All right, I've got about 3/8 inch worth of material here. So I want to try, there are some leaves. A magnolia leaf is very smooth, very rounded, okay? Look at your oak leaves. Look at the leaves that have been laying on the ground for a while. they look like a wadded up piece of paper. Okay, they've got highs, they've got lows, they've got valleys, they've got ridges. Okay, that's what you want. You want contrast. You want to make your leaf look like a real leaf. Okay, I'm going to hand this finished one around. I want you to look at this primary leaf, the prominent leaf in the center. Look at the contour difference of that leaf. It is very high on one side. It is very shallow on the other. It's all of the leaf, all of the points are scooping up. Okay, that's my style. That's what I like. Okay, other people may not like that. I like it, and I like it. So when you turn your blank, when you turn your Volkswagen hubcap, think about how much contrast you want and how much you want that to look like a leaf from 30 feet away, from 20 feet away. You want it to look like leaves. You see the contrast? You see how bold that difference is? That's what you want to see. This is the saber grinder, and this will take some wood off, okay? And you can see I've already kind of cut down in here, and I've actually punched a hole through it. Is that bad? No. Look at the leaves that you've got out in the backyard. The ones that, the dogs have been running over, the kids have been running over, you've mowed over them. They're starting to decompose. They have holes in them, okay? So if you poke a hole in the leaf, it's a feature. Okay, so you can see how quickly this saber, and again, I'm trying to dive into the holes, and I'm trying to keep my peaks, my tips up. So I run this saber right down in there until it just scoops right up into that point, okay? And I do that all the way around this prominent leaf. And you can see I'm actually starting to shape not just the leaf, but I'm also starting to leave some of the definition of what would be the veins in this. You want to be thinking about veining. Veining is not the prominent thing you're trying to get here. You don't want a very nice leaf with a very tall vein. You want your veins to indicate that there's a vein there, but you don't want it so tall. We're trying to mimic and do what Mother Nature would do naturally and make it look like a leaf. And I talked about going out into the yard and getting leaves and using them as patterns. Another good place is Hobby Lobby, Michael's. Any of those places are good. Go through the silk flower area. The other thing, the nice thing about a rice bag or bean bag is you can kind of turn it over and tap it and get some of the dust off of your work and keep going. Let's go back to patterns. Nature. Go down your trail walks. Go to the arboretum. Look at different flowers. Look at different leaves. Look at exotic leaves. At arboretums, at zoos. When you travel, take pictures. Go to nurseries. Is another good place. I think it's MDI wood carving is a really good source for all of these bits. They, in the past 2 years, I guess, have started offering a package called the Sammy Long Embellishment Kit. It's got the stump cutter that I talked about. It's got one of these. It's got one of these little 5 5 or 6 bit pointed chisel bits. I want to say there's 9, 10, maybe 11 bits in there, which are kind of the core bits that Sammy uses. It's about $120, give or take. Okay. I'm gonna go to one of the bits that's out of Sammy's, which is I forget. I don't remember what he calls this. I'm sorry. And what I'm going to work on is, as you do all your rough cutting, when you look at, you take 2 boards, take 2x4s, stack them, and you throw them out on the floor. One of them's going to lay flat on the table, the other one's going to lay like this on top of it, okay? By moving the light around, you're going to see that there is an underside of this top 2x4 before you see the bottom 2x4. If you were to take a piece of cheesecloth and drape it over that, you've got the cheesecloth going over the top 2x4, draping down and making a very nice fillet weld or smooth caulk line. You know, you don't want that when you carve. You want to maintain that sharp contrast, that undercut of the top leaf over the bottom leaf, okay? So I'm going to do that just in one little area here. I'm going to show you on the prominent leaf, the point. You can see I've got some areas where the bottom leaf is rolling up. Very nice, because I've used a ball cutter, and so I can't get under that corner. I want to create that corner. I want you to think about the bow of a cabin cruiser. You know, it's not a barge. It's not a Mississippi barge carrying coal down the river that pushes a big bow wave in front of it. It is a very sleek, I mean, think of the Titanic. Think of when, I want to say Jennifer Hudson, that's not her name. What's the, when she was out doing her, you know, her butterfly on the bow of the boat. She is 50 feet forward of where the water is actually touching the boat. That bow is way out there, okay? And that's what we want with our leaves. We want the bottom leaf and we want our top leaf to stand proud and way over that. So we want the daylight, we want the light to create a shadow event underneath. So I'm going to start that here, let you see how I'm trying to, on this point here, create that undercut effect. I heard a story last week about a butcher that backed into his meat grinder, his meat slicer. The story was he got a little behind on all his work. I don't know if you can see it, but watch how much of my bit actually goes under that leaf. And the more you can practice and the better you can get at getting these points to stand proud, the more it will look like a true three-dimensional stack up of leaves. And it's not something that, I mean, I come back 3 and 4 times and dig deeper. So again, it's only this prominent leaf. It's only these first two points that I've worked on. The question was, what is the name of the bit? And it is a type of stump grinder. It's still in the same stump grinder family in that it's got teeth on it. It's got flutes on it. And again, this is that same as that other stump grinder. If you turn it one way, you will feel it trying to grab and cut. If you turn it the other way, you'll feel it do more polishing, okay? All right, so you've finished all your carving. And you look at it and you've got marks all over it, okay? There are ways of getting rid of those, okay? One is this is a diamond tool, and Sammy Long will tell you this is like sandpaper on a stick, or if you're a Jeff Dunham fan, on a stick. And it's just like sandpaper. You want to run this at a slower speed than what you've run your bits and your grinders. Your bits clog. Get you a little brush, okay? This is a little 3-brush kit. It has a nylon brush, it has a brass brush, and it has a steel brush. I don't use the steel brush on this, but especially your diamond bit, when it's in the cutter, when it's in the micro carver, every now and then you want to unclog it, okay? Just run it across that brass brush. Same way with the saber bits, they'll clog up. The stump grinders will clog up. Keep your bits clean, okay? All right, so you're nearly finished. You've got everything cut and you've run your diamond polisher across it. Next, you want to sand it, okay? Well, you've done all of this work, putting all of this profile, all of this contour in here. You obviously don't want to take it to your belt sander, okay? You want something that you can get in those grooves. You want something you can get down and follow that contour, okay? Sammy Long showed us this punch set, and it's I don't know, it was $40 or something like that. It's a pretty neat punch set. I've used other punch sets trying to punch out sandpaper, and the sandpaper discs, they go up into the collar, and you end up having to unscrew the thing and take a screwdriver or something and try to poke it out. You don't have that problem with this. This has got a spring punch on it. You put whatever size, punch you're wanting to make, and it pushes the disc right out, okay? Now, it puts a little dimple on your sanding disc. Not really a problem. That's the center of rotation. It helps you know where the center disc is. So I keep various, try to make up sanding disc ahead of time: 150, 220, 320, and 400. Okay? Now put them out. How do I do that? I take this is a Scotch product. It's just a foamed back double-sided tape. It's got a carrier. The red is a carrier ribbon. I peel that off. I stick sandpaper on it, cut it down to size. I take my punch and just whack, 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 whack. Okay? Got it on, I got it on Amazon, okay? I have 150, and I have taken nothing more than a mandrel, a cutting disc mandrel, out of a Dremel set. Usually it's got a little bitty set screw that goes in the end, and it holds a little bitty stone disc. It's good for cut off and other things. Usually they fracture after about the first 3 seconds of engaging anything, and they throw shrapnel everywhere. Take the little screw out. It has a perfect, good little flat face on it. I just peel you can see you can look at these up here. The red circle where I've cut has a little needle mark in it from the center punch of the hole punch set. Just put that in try to get it roughly centered and squish it on there. Squish, that's a scientific term, okay? Now, again, I'm not wanting to run very fast here. This is a sanding operation. Just like in turning, you cut fast and then you sand slow because you build up heat, okay? So I'm just going to put this in there. And the disc does a pretty good job. You can see it starting to take the tool marks out. And I'll work up through the grits. I'll start at 150, go to 220. And if I know I'm going to do something else to finish, I don't usually like to make slick leaves. Okay, I have finished things down to a 400, and I've put tung oil on it and made them nice and shiny. I don't know that anybody can walk out in their backyard and find nice shiny brown leaves laying in the yard. Now, when magnolia leaves and some trees first fall, they're going to be real nice and waxy and clean. That may be a look you're going for, especially if you're going to use an airbrush to add color to it. But for the most part, I don't want to do much sanding on it. I want to come back with my diamond bit or one of my small, that's my diamond. I'm going to go with a small diameter stump cutter. Didn't clean that one too well the last time. And I just want to come in and stipple. Just randomly stipple. I'm just touching, just to give it a texture. Look at a leaf that's in your backyard. As it started to dry and it has started to decompose, the cellular structure of the leaf, you can almost see the cells. You can almost see the cell walls. You can see each of those, and as they dry out, you can see each of those little compartments, and they have little, it's a rough surface. Don't make your leaf smooth. It makes it shiny. It makes it somewhat unrealistic. So, and when you're doing this stippling, this is when if you haven't already done it, you may want to leave a zone that would be the vein. That's kind of how I do it. So if you don't want the vein standing real prominent and very proud, this is the time to leave that detail in there, and you don't stipple where the vein's going to be. This is a stump cutter. This is the fine stump cutter. It's the same deal. You've got one way it feels you can feel it cutting, and the other way you can feel it polishing. So if you don't want to stipple very heavy, reverse it, go the other way. The question was, what do I finish with? You want typically something that you don't want a friction polish, because you can't get into the grooves. You don't want to have to go back with a polisher and try to polish every item. A tung oil or a wipe-on poly, something that goes on as a flowable liquid, tends to do best. Anything that is a paste is going to get gummed up in the crevices and the cracks, and you're going to have to come back and try to clean it out. So, excellent question. Wipe-on finishes versus spray finishes. Def and some of the spray finishes I think would work fine. I don't use spray finishes just because I've just never found a spray finish that I like. I think you have to be careful with spray finishes because you've got so much contour and you've got so many crevices and cracks that you're trying to get into. If you try to spray each of those crevices, you may get an over buildup or a clouding if you get it on too thick. Okay, good question. This is what works for me. You've seen my finished product. You've seen how I do it. Is it for everybody? No. If you want to turn and throw curly chips, this may not be your forte. Okay, I don't airbrush. Why? Because I don't have an airbrush. He uses cherry. It's got a good grain to it. It's a good hardwood. It doesn't have a lot of color variation. For this, I was a cheap instructor. I went down, there's lots of construction going on in Forney, and I went and picked up a 2x8 out of the scrap bin, went home, cut it up, and made some samples. I'm not trying to show you the grain. I'm not trying to show you the finish. I'm trying to show you the steps here, okay? This is cherry. Both of these were the product of classes that I took with Sammy Long. He brought cherry hubcaps, and we picked one out. This one has a little bit of darkening on one leaf, and if I would have noticed that when I was looking at the blank, I might have positioned those leaves so that the transition from that light to the dark would be on two different leaves. I didn't notice it until I was nearly finished and I was putting tung oil on it, and oh wow, that's a darker section there. It's a feature. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me again.